Omaha Beach turns into the deadliest stretch of the Normandy landings because the men coming ashore aren't just facing machine guns. They are hitting a beach built to trap them between a rising tide and a wall of fire, with steep bluffs ahead and the cold Atlantic at their backs. The whole plan for Operation Overlord depends on timing, and at Omaha, that timing starts to break almost at once. So men who are supposed to move inland in minutes instead get pinned on open sand with nowhere to go. Omaha sits in a wide curve, and at low tide that shape leaves a huge strip of wet sand exposed to every gun on the high ground. At the top sits a shingle bank, which is a belt of loose stones that slows every step and gives almost no cover. Past that shingle, the land rises into steep bluffs, and only 5 narrow draws cut through them. Those draws are the only roads inland, so they look like the way out, but they become the worst places on the beach. That is where the German defense does its best work. These are Atlantic wall positions, built to rake the beach from the side, and positions above Vierville, Easy Red, and the eastern sectors don't need a clean shot straight out to sea, because the curve of Omaha lets them fire along the shore. That lateral fire is what makes Omaha so hard to crack, because one strong point backs up the next, and the same strip of sand stays under fire even if one gun misses. A man can hit the beach nowhere near a bunker and still end up in its line of fire. The beach is also lined with obstacles meant to rip open boats before they touch shore. Belgian gates, mined logs, and steel hedgehogs force landing craft to thread through narrow gaps, while engineers try to clear lanes. Nothing about that approach is clean. Boats slow down, men bunch up, and every second they spend in the surf gives the defenders more time to mark the range. The first troops land at low tide, so those obstacles are still exposed. But that also means they have to cross a long, open flat under fire. Low water had come before dawn, and by H hour, the tide still leaves several hundred yards of exposed ground between the boats and the bluffs. Then the water rises and starts to squeeze the survivors into a thinner strip of ground. The men crossing that strip arrive in Higgins boats, packed tight and shielded by little more than a thin steel ramp. And when it drops, they don't hit a path inland. They step into cold water, smoke, and direct fire with the bluff still far ahead. The moment it drops, the world explodes. The trouble starts long before the first ramp drops into the surf. The men in those boats are told to expect weaker coastal troops who will be smashed by air and naval fire. But that picture is already wrong. A much stronger German force, the 352nd Infantry Division, has moved into place, and the warning comes too late to fully reset the assault. This means the first wave lands expecting one fight and finds another, facing dug-in defenders who are ready, well-placed, and far harder to break than the assault troops were led to believe. The bombardment is supposed to crack that system open, but it misses at the worst possible moment. Heavy bombers come in over Omaha at about 6 a.m., but overcast skies and the fear of hitting friendly ships push the release too far inland. Out of that strike, only 3 bombs fall anywhere near the beach, which means the guns on the bluffs stay alive and ready to fire. Naval fire runs into its own problem because smoke, dust, and sea mist make it hard to see what is still active on shore. The big ships also have to watch the small boats moving below them, so the preparatory fire loses force right when the infantry needs the shoreline smashed flat. Then the armor starts to vanish. Most of the swim tanks never reach the sand, and on another front, the sea is so rough the tanks have to stay on their craft, which saves some of them but wrecks the timing. The infantry is supposed to land with armor ahead and engineers close behind. But instead, men jump into deep water, lose radios, lose officers, and drift into the wrong sectors as currents and smoke tear the plan apart. They crawl onto a narrow strip of sand with no clear way off it, though a few tanks still make a difference. Even one working tank can pull fire and shield a group at the shingle, and on that beach, one patch of cover can keep a landing from collapsing. By 6:55 a.m., a report reaches the transport ship Samuel Chase, saying the first wave has effectively foundered. Instead of a breakthrough, the assault is backing up under heavy fire and the exits are still shut. Those exits draw the worst fire on the beach, and Vierville turns dog green into a slaughter zone, while strongpoints over Easy Red and Fox Green sweep the center and east with machine guns, mortars, and anti-tank fire. Men flatten behind obstacles, behind bodies, behind the shingle, anywhere they can drop out of sight for a second and breathe. Losses climb fast. The 16th Infantry Regiment suffers 971 killed, wounded, or missing on June 6th, and the 116th Infantry Regiment loses about 1,007 by the end of the day. That tells you how hard the first hours hit. Whole units come apart on the run-in, and once they reach shore, the survivors are mixed together, cut off from their officers, and trying to guess which bunker is firing on them through smoke and spray. Then the battle shifts, because small groups stop trying to force the draws. They move through weak ground between the strongpoints, cut through wire, crawl into dead ground, and get above positions that were built to fire across the beach, not fight in every direction at once. By about 8:25 to 9 a.m., troops are climbing the bluffs in scattered groups. It isn't clean and it isn't orderly, but it starts to work because these are small breaches the defenders can't seal fast enough. Out at sea, Navy destroyer captains see the beach pinned down and drive in close enough to risk running aground, then fire straight into bunkers and gun pits from short range, some close to around 800 to 1,000 yards. That is the turning point, because the ships are no longer following a schedule. They are trying to save the landing, and at that range, the shells start hitting the positions that had owned the beach all morning. Omaha turns into a nightmare because every part of the assault plan breaks at once. The airstrike misses, the tanks vanish into the sea, the exits stay shut, and the strongest ground sits right where the attack has to pass. The men who get off that beach don't do it because the original timetable holds. They get off it because scattered survivors keep moving, destroyers come in hard, and gaps finally open in a defense that looked sealed shut an hour earlier. After Omaha, Allied forces put far more trust in close naval gunfire and in small groups pushing through gaps when the plan falls apart. For more deep dives into military history, make sure you're subscribed to the